What does financial independence mean to you?
Having the ability to live my life the way I decide to live it.
What was the mindset like of people when you think about back? What stands out for you?
You didn't have access on news, on education, on things that would help bring enlightenment to people. How important it is for them to have financial education to change the world by how they spend their money.
Welcome, I'm Tracy Irwin and I'm passionate about financial independence and wanted to share stories of inspiring entrepreneurs to prove it's possible for everyone to strive towards financial freedom. Today, I'm talking to Adina Petre. She's a clinical psychologist trained as a trauma therapist and a high performance coach. She was born in communist Romania and she emigrated to the Netherlands 16 years ago, where she's built her business. So thank you so much for joining me, Adina. I am so looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you for the invitation, Tracy. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Much appreciated.
So I'm going to start with my normal question, just so we can get started. What does financial independence mean to you?
It's a very interesting question. I've been thinking about it a lot because I think there is an inherited type of answer that I kind of grew up with
Okay.
knowing what financial independence is. And then there is one that I've discovered myself throughout the years, right? So I'd say that maybe a lot of people from Central and Eastern Europe would recognize this, that financial independence means being extremely wealthy. It means being so wealthy that you can open any door and create any kind of opportunity for yourself. This is the kind of mentality that I grew up with and I again inherited right from my family and from the generations before me. What I discovered after I relocated to the Netherlands is that financial independence, or at least my definition of financial independence, is having the ability to live my life the way I decide to live it. To have the kind of pace and rhythm and openness that I know is good for me. So, for example, daring to start my own company and not stay in a 9 to 5 kind of setup was for me a big step in the direction of attaining my financial independence.
Nice. It's about choice, isn't it? That's my short answer is always it's about having choices. I love that. So, I mean, I know it was 16 years ago, but when you first moved to the Netherlands, what was the what was the biggest difference did you feel that people felt about like money, day-to-day work? What was the biggest shift in that you had to deal with when you moved from like Romania to the Netherlands?
Mm. I think the biggest thing that I noticed was the fact that people in the Netherlands, they don't judge or label based on the level of work or education that you're doing. While as in my part of the world where I come from, people are very quick to judge and label and categorize you. So for a lot of people, for example, in Romania, they were very puzzled because I was already a clinical psychologist. I attained my master's. And after I relocated to the Netherlands, my first job here was to be a waitress. And they were shocked and they saw this as something demeaning. They were looking at how do you do such a low paying job? And they would evaluate that I'm somehow less of a person because I do that. Whereas people in the Netherlands were more open and they received it as something casual. Like if I were to say, my favorite flower is the sunflower, for them it would have been the same reaction. Like, oh, you work as a waitress. That's interesting. You're a clinical psychologist. Wow. So there was no evaluation and no judgment of my person based on the job that I was doing.
That's really interesting. And I have a judgment, and it's the only one I have, by the way. I'm not a judgmental person at all, but I judge people on actually how they treat waiting staff because of that exact reason. Right. So if
Mhm.
I'm in a meeting with somebody and they're very rude or dismissive of the waiting staff, suddenly I don't want to work with them. Like it's kind of like, and I know I do it, but I'm not changing. I can't change. It's the only judgmental thing I actually have because I believe it's how we treat one person is how we treat everybody. And like you've
Yeah.
said about, having that judgment of what you're only waitressing, like it's not that, is it? It's like understanding that it's a ways to an ends, and some like for many people it's an enjoyable job. They like the socialness of it, of meeting new people. There's nothing, it's like, yeah, it's just like choosing what flower you like, which is very relevant to the Netherlands, by the way. Seeing as though 95% of flowers come from there. So when you were doing, so you were a trauma specialist before you moved to the Netherlands. That's not, so you are actually like, so what was the
No,
catalyst then for you to actually decide that this is what you wanted to build your business in? Had you decided that before you moved, or was this something that just came afterwards?
no, not at all, to be honest. Like my clinical psychology degree basically trained me to be part of the essential medical personnel that is working in a mental health facility.
Right. Okay.
And my career trajectory was very clear and very simple. Finish, get your master's degree, get hired into a mental health clinic, stay there until my pension days. Like this was the original trajectory of my career. And then after I moved to the Netherlands, I took the waitressing job because it was the quickest, easiest available for me
Yeah. Yeah.
towards my financial independence
Yeah.
path. And in that setting, actually, I met some fellow students because I came here to be a student to do a second master's.
Ah, okay.
And basically, I ended up being an entrepreneur because of my friends. And it was one of those student things where they were coming to the restaurant. I became friends with them. And at some point, they said, "Hey, do you want to come to an event with us? There's going to be free drinks and food." And of course, I was like, "Oh, yeah,
Was you a
definitely."
student?
Exactly. And we were all very, oriented towards those events. And I said, "Yeah, great. What's the event?" And they said, "It's an entrepreneurship conference." And I looked at them and I said, "I don't know what that means. I didn't even know how to spell the word. I didn't even know what it means. I didn't understand the concept, right? But I just went there because there were free food and drinks and I was hanging out with my friends. So I was like, "Yay, let's do this."
Honestly, entrepreneur is still a really hard word to spell, by the way, even like when you've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. But so what was it about that event that actually sparked your interest in being an entrepreneur?
I really just got convinced. Some people on stage said, "You can do it. You can start your business tomorrow." And something in their, I don't know, their conviction and the way that they were saying these things, I just believed them. I was looking at them, and for the first time in my life, I started considering, why couldn't I? Is this maybe a possibility for me as well? Like, why should I wait and do more years of training to actually get to work in a clinic in a foreign country to when I could just start the business tomorrow? And that's pretty much what happened. After the series of conferences, a few friends and I, we met in the central square of the city where I was living in. We hopped on a bus and we went together to the Chamber of Commerce, not having any clue about what it entails to start a business. I
Okay.
just walked in with my passport and 50 euros cash because that's how much it cost back then. That was 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I still remember the lady at the Chamber of Commerce. She was looking at me like, "Oh, so you want to start a business?" "Yes." "What do you want your business to be in?" "I don't know." "How many clients are you going to have?" "I don't know." "How much are you going to charge for your services?" "I have no clue." What's this? She was looking at me trying to assert, is she joking right now or is she for real? And I'm so grateful to her because she walked out from behind the counter, and we sat down, she made me a cup of coffee, and she basically interviewed this data out of me. She was like, "Okay, what did you study? What do you think you can do with it?" And then she taught me how to think, like, how many people do you think you can help with what you want to do, and so on and so forth. Like, how much do you think you could charge for your services? So it was a fantastic experience, and she really helped me start my business that day.
Yeah. That's really interesting because, like, there is so many people start a business either by accident, or some people like have the whole trajectory ahead. It's like, this is what they're like, I want to start a business now because I want to sell it in 10 years. Like, some people come to me for all different things, but that's interesting. You just knew you wanted to be a business owner. You just weren't quite sure in what, but yeah, obviously using your expertise now.
Yeah.
So I know it was 15 years ago, but when you were starting, like, what kind of if you could if somebody is listening to this and thinking, I want to start a business. I want to be a business owner. Like, what advice would you give them? What was really difficult in those first couple of years as somebody who'd suddenly like had a difference of opinion and like suddenly wanted to become a business owner rather than being in corporate, let's say?
Mm. I think for me, what was helpful was that indeed I had some studies and I knew that I wanted to work with people. So having a little bit of clarity in regards to what it is that you want to do, I think is the number one thing. Um, so I leveraged my knowledge because I did work before leaving from departing from Romania. I did work as a counselor, right? So this was the when I started my business, I started it as a coaching practice because this was the easiest for me to do.
Yep.
And I think one of the main difficult things in the beginning was exactly this, not knowing how to do things, not knowing when to do things. And if I am to advise people, and sometimes this happens now when people come to me for business mentoring, the first thing that I look at is, okay, what do you already have? Because people have a wealth of knowledge that sometimes they're not aware of. And if they just manage to put that into one thing, one package, one service, one product, surely there's going to be at least 5 or 10 people out there in the world that are happy to have that product or service.
Yes.
And those are some of the initial steps that I encourage people to take. Look at what you already know, because everybody knows something, and then look for the people who want that thing that you know of, and it's going to be pretty easy from then on.
Yeah, I think it's doing your research, isn't it, to make to just see how many people. I remember being in a mastermind group once, and this lady was trying to create an app to help teachers with marking, right? And it was all over Europe. She was German, I think, actually,
Mhm.
and we worked backwards at how many teachers were in. She was French. I remember now, French-speaking countries, and just her initial. And when we'd done the research to find out how many people that she could serve, and then even if she just got 1% of them, like suddenly she had this really great business model. And but because she hadn't done the numbers beforehand, she just was like, well, I was thinking of doing this. Suddenly it was like, why haven't you done it yet? Like this is like amazing. You don't need
Yeah.
you didn't even need, she didn't even need 1% of the people that she could have served to actually buy her product. And I was like, that, and those kind of things, like, I love them. I love listening to people's ideas and things and seeing, like, I spoke to a gentleman yesterday who has a very, very niche. And, that was the conversation we had was actually the opposite. Like, have you actually tested this? Do you know how many people need this? Because, it's going to be if that's going to depend on your price because if there's not a lot of people, you're going to have a really great valued service because you're not going to be able to get hundreds of people. That's just because they're not there. They're not there. So there, yeah, I think that's really, really important.
Yeah.
I mean, are you happy to share? Because I'm really curious about your upbringing in communist Romania. Are you happy to for me to ask questions about that? Okay, thank you. So, firstly,
Yeah.
let's go with what was it like? Like, what was the mindset like of people and like when you think about back, what stands out for you?
Oh, I think this is so surreal. Like, I sometimes tell my friends that for me, this life feels like I've time traveled
Yeah.
because it's as if communist Romania is a country from almost 100 years ago, mentality wise. The level of darkness, the level of repression, not having access to the outside world, like the borders were closed at all times. You had no way to get out.
Okay.
And beyond getting out, there was also nothing coming in. So the reason why they call it the Iron Curtain is because it was secluded from the rest of the world. And you didn't have access on news, on education, on things that would help bring enlightenment to people. There was no access to this. So, for example, my psychology teachers, they told me that they would have smuggled books that they would read in the basement of the faculty of sociology because
Oh,
psychology was forbidden. So in this respect, it sounds really strange when I tell this to people that this happened in my lifetime, in our lifetime, and it
right,
was
yeah.
happening 2,000 kilometers away from Western Europe. everybody's looking at me like, what? So this is just to paint the bigger picture, the mentality, right, and the society thing. But if I am to bring it down to everyday stuff, I remember one of my ex-partners being shocked when I told him I grew up without Lego. I did not have access to Lego blocks. I did not watch cartoons growing up. I did not have Coca-Cola on the shelves and a Mars bar or a Snickers bar because those things were forbidden in Romania. There was no
Wow.
import from outside, right?
Okay.
Are you working harder than ever, but feeling like you're getting nowhere? You're not alone. Most business owners I speak to feel trapped in their own success, working 60 hours plus a week, missing family time, and honestly, they're not even sure why they feel so stuck. They just know something needs to change. If this sounds familiar, I've created a quick quiz to help you find out why you feel stuck in your business. It takes only 2 minutes and I give you clarity on exactly what's keeping you trapped and, more importantly, how to break free. The link's in the description, so why not take it now?
I went to Romania in November last year, and it's the first
Uh-huh.
time I've ever been, and you can see the contrast, can't you, between what's happening now and what used to be. There's like still some old things, but you can see how the buildings and everything. And I hired a car, was very brave, and I was like going down this road. And but I was only there for 3 days. And I remember the first day being absolutely petrified of all these cars coming at me. But actually, what I realized is everyone thinks of each other. You can just go out because the car behind is going to slow down. And it's
Yeah.
like, even though it looks like absolute chaos, actually, it's really cared. People like consider everyone else around them. And I was like, wow. And it took me like the first day to realize I was so petrified that first day. But by the third day, I'm like, I'm a local. I'm pulling out in front of everybody. It's just
No,
like,
it is. Romania is a collectivist society, right? So there's almost like this invisible line in the middle of the world map that crosses Central Europe. Everything east of Central Europe is a collectivist society. Everything west of Central Europe is an individualistic society. So
okay,
Romanians are more like an ant colony in that sense that they do move together in
yes,
stuff, right?
yeah,
And this was also something that I remember from back in dictatorship, that, for example, there was huge scarcity of resources, absolute huge, because our dictator leader Ceausescu, he had this ambition to pay off foreign debt post World War II. And therefore, everything that was produced in the country, and there was a lot produced in the country, it was first given to export, and the leftovers were kept for us,
oh,
for its citizens. Therefore, we had food rations. So every family had a food cart that you would stamp when you were going to get places, and we were allocated certain amounts of food. So a one-person family could only get half a bread, half a butter stick a week, or stuff like that. And a family with one or two kids maybe could have access to once or twice a week you would get a small chicken to feed your family, and one bottle of milk, and so on. So food rationalization and the scarcity of resources somehow created this kind of double living, because for some people they were more prone to gather in communities and share the things that they had. Other people started distancing themselves from communities because they had certain advantages. So if you had a relative that would work in the dairy farm, you would have access to the freshest milk, and maybe they could squeeze in an extra bottle, which also created this layer of corruption back in Romania
yeah.
in perpetuating this kind of model. So it's definitely interesting to study. It's an
Yeah,
interesting.
so I mean, I'm so curious about it. And like, so knowing you were on food rations, like,
Mhm.
what did that, how did that, people, there was, if, like, I'm trying to get my words out. My brain's thinking quicker than my mouth's working. But for me, it's like people with more money and abundance of money aren't particularly going to be any better off food wise because they physically can't. Like, what kind of relationship did that, what the to them, like,
Mm.
the people wouldn't have strived for money the same because there was no point.
Yes and no. So on the one hand, you're right. If you had more money, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can just go and buy an extra loaf of bread. But it did mean that you had access to somebody that works at the bread factory. And in exchange for a small bribe, you could have access to more bread than other people. This is what I was saying, the corruption level that was created within society. It's suddenly, the Romanian society suddenly became about networking, basically. Who you know, who has access, what can you exchange for that access? Because if my father works in the dairy farm and your father works at the slaughterhouse, they become friends, and then we both have something more to eat than the rest of the people. And this kind of scarcity mindset, what it created in terms of behavior was the sling back. Once communism fell and we had access to everything, every single person in Romania became a hoarder. that was
Really?
it. Yes, because that's collective trauma to live in such scarcity that we still haven't recovered from it.
That's really interesting because they would be as well, there'd always be that worry that it would be taken away again as well. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
And we also have from back in the 40s where there was actual hunger. So all our grandparents lived through hunger. Therefore, this whole thing was reenacted for them. And then when finally things settled and we had access to everything, people just, it's a subconscious thing to keep buying and to keep having things for the black days. I still remember, this is a very Romanian expression. We're keeping it for the black days. You never know when the black days are going to come back again, right? And there is also this lack of trust as population, right? And what you have now, is it going to last? Lack of trust in other people. Can I trust that you are going to be honest and not to try to take away something from me? So yeah, it's very interesting.
It is. And so as I mean, there's a lot of Romanians in Spain as well as the Netherlands. Like what do you feel is different? What do they what kind of what's the lifestyle that they're hoping for when people emigrate? What were you hoping for?
Well, I see two types of Romanian expats. There is the type of Romanian expat, which, by the way, in the UK, they are the second largest expat population after the Polish.
After the Polish, yes, I know.
All the Romanians are everywhere in Western Europe,
So, like the Dutch are everywhere in Spain, in Europe too. So.
Exactly. So Spain and Italy were the first countries where, after we joined the EU, people emigrated to because language-wise, it was the easiest accessible for us. So it was very easy for us to learn the language, and we are quite similar. We are a Latin people, so we click really well with the Latin peoples, and it's easy for us to learn the language. And as I said, there were two types of immigrants that I've noticed. One is the immigrant that goes abroad to create somewhat of a financial wealth to reinvest it back in Romania so that later in life, maybe in retirement ages, they will come back to Romania. So they're working hard, they're sending money back home, their families there are well taken care of, they're building houses that later they can retire into. And the second type of immigrant is the one that is slowly but surely, or maybe all of a sudden, cutting ties with Romania almost completely and establishing a new life for themselves in their adoptive country, learning the language, integrating into the local community, not really sending money back home, going to visit less and less as the years go by, and so on and so forth. So these are the two types that I've noticed, and I think I'm still somewhere in between. I didn't expect, like, everything that happened in my life in the Netherlands, I did not expect it. Like, I genuinely believed. I still remember this when my mom was driving me at the airport and, she was sobbing. Oh my God, where are you going? And I remember comforting her in the airport and saying, it's just a 1-year master's program. I'll be back. It's not even a year. It's 9 months of tuitions and then I'll be back. Because my original thought was, I'm going abroad to get a secondary diploma so that I would have a competitive advantage on the market when I get back to Romania. I never expected I'll be here 16 years later running my
running your own company. So Yeah, it's an amazing story, Adina. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. I really appreciate it. And so running your business, like who do you help and how do you help them?
I help people who have high ambitions or high ideals, but are feeling stuck. They are feeling that they're going towards those ambitions with the handbrakes on. Because in my experience, if that happens to a person, usually there is trauma in their system or in their family history.
Okay.
So we know now that there are a couple of layers in what psychological trauma is concerned. There is the transgenerational component. People from Romania, they already know it and they recognize it. But also people who have had in their families, they were affected by war. And we know that in Europe, everybody was affected by war. Even today, we are affected by war because it's still happening in the world close to us, and it has a ripple effect that impacts our life. So people who have this blockage inside that they cannot, let's say, thrive in their life or in their business, those are the people that come to see me, because I basically, from working on their trauma and managing to unblock those things that are blocked, then with coaching we build towards whatever success looks like for them. And this is something that I value a lot. My clients' autonomy, they are the showrunners. They get to decide what problems we work on. They get to decide the destination that they want for themselves. I'm just there to support them in moving from one place to another. I don't impose my expert opinion on them. I don't dictate how to go and where to go. And I think I genuinely believe, from a Socratic point of view, that the inner wisdom of a person just needs to be helped to be brought up to the surface, and then they're good. They can just fly by themselves. They don't need me for that long.
Oh, that's really nice. So thank you. So like what kind of how do they know that they need you? Like what's kind of going through their minds at the time when and before they come to you?
Your business is successful, so why do you feel so miserable? Here's the thing, success doesn't always automatically equal freedom. I see profitable business owners every day who can't take a holiday, who can't switch off, and they feel completely overwhelmed by their own achievements. Sound familiar? Well, I've created a simple quiz that pinpoints exactly why you feel stuck in your business. It will give you the clarity you need to move from being trapped to being free. Why don't you take the quiz now? The link's in the description below.
I think most people now, they have already access for a long time to a little bit of self-awareness and to a bit of self-education, right? So they mostly come to me and they say, I think it's because of my trauma. The fact that they can already name it so clearly, for me, it's amazing, right? But sometimes there are also people who say, I'm not exactly sure, but something's off. Like I go to bed and I ruminate about issues, even though my life is perfectly set. And I don't know why I do that. So there are two types, let's say, of people who generally come to me. Those that are still a bit circling in the blind and trying to figure out what exactly is going on. My life is all together. I have a wife, I have a house, I have kids, everything is right, but I don't feel right. Or I'm extremely stressed and I cannot turn off the stress engine and what's going on. So that's when we start digging a little bit and we find out that their nervous system might run in hyperactivation because they have a history of trauma or because they've inherited a hyper functioning model that is not sustainable long term. And then there is the other side that say, oh yeah, I know it's because of trauma. I know it's because of the violence or the neglect or the poverty that I grew up in, that I cannot see myself over this threshold, right? And that's where we intervene and we unpack that and we see what core beliefs are there that are keeping you in place. How do we reshape those core beliefs in order for you to be open to your next level of growth, development, success, whatever that might look like? That's what I do.
Awesome. Do you see people then that like don't realize that their money stories from the past is actually what is driving the block?
Yes, there is a lot there. I am actually currently doing a training that I am observing how trauma impacts our relationship with money
Awesome.
and these kind of things that are inherited and how they modulate our behavior, even without us being aware that that's where it's coming from, right? And this is something that I'm absolutely fascinated by. And it is true in the work with my clients, we always touch upon the money story and the kind of invisible threads that sometimes pulls their behaviors. Because a lot of people have this unaware that they are making decisions every single day of their life based on these invisible puppeteers that belong to trauma, right? And the moment I start pointing that out to them, they're absolutely shocked. And they're like, I never thought of it that way. And I never saw this. And oh my God, this is so helpful, because that's where autonomy has a chance to come back in.
Yes.
When you bring the subconscious to the conscious level, it empowers you. It empowers you to make decisions differently. It empowers you to actually change your life.
Yes.
So I'm very, very happy and honored that I get to be part of those discovery processes for my clients.
Me too, actually. So that's the subconscious thing, isn't it? It's like people don't realize that it's their subconscious that makes the decisions for them. People think it's their conscious brain that's making the decisions, and generally it really isn't, because your subconscious has just one job, and that is just to keep you safe. And I think when people, especially those that are going, my life's brilliant, but there's something not quite right, that's tends to be where it's at. It's like sitting in your subconscious, keeping you safe somehow, but it might not be what you want as well. So if you could look back at teenage Adina, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, that is such a sweet question. I think teenage Adina, she couldn't imagine life for us as a grown-up in this way. There was so much conditioning into thinking. I remember this, I think it was, I don't know, maybe I was 16 or 17 or something, that I had already written kind of like a letter of what my future is going to be like. And it was so ingrained into the programming of my society. And I remember saying something like, by the time I'm 25, I will be taller. For some reason, I thought I was going to be taller. That I was convinced that I had to be very, very slim, because this is what my society expects of women to look a certain way.
Okay.
That I would be married, that I would have 2 children, I would have a house and a car, because these are status symbols that you must have in society, so that you are indicating that you're a successful individual, right? Not to mention the timeline, it's absurd. From 16 to 25, you have to have all of those things. I was like, wow, that was so wild. So I think that the message for Adina in the past is, you're gonna do so much better than that, and in such a different timeline. You might as well just enjoy the ride, girl.
And the things that you thought were important at 16 actually really aren't at all, are they? My daughter did a similar thing. When she was a teenager, she came to me with this letter, and it said her name on the front, aged 30, right? It had the date and everything on it. And she was like, Mum, will you look after this for me until I'm 30 years old? And my daughter's 31 now. So she got to 25 and she was like, did you not have a letter for me? I was like, I have a letter for you, love. I said, but it's not, why is she 25? I said, you've got the 30 on it. I said, do you really want it now? She was like, no, let's leave it till I'm 30. And it was so interesting reading it, like the things that mattered to her so much at the 15, 16-year-old. Like we were laughing about it, and she was the same. She had her like she was mapped out. I mean, she's a renal sister at Manchester Royal Infirmary now. I'm very proud of everything she's achieved. But she wanted to be a coroner, which is quite a different, similar, but very different. And she was like, I'm going to do my studies. I'm then going to meet somebody. I'm then going to get married, and I'm then going to have children. Like that did not happen for her. And I think we see teenagers see like their lives as really planned out, and I think sometimes we have to look back, don't we, and think, gosh, that teenager would be so proud of me right now because of everything that I've done differently. So, but
I think it's also because the grown-ups in our lives, at least this is how I grew up, they were kind of constantly reinforcing this narrative. Like, in your life, you have to study well, get a good job, find a good person, get married, settle down. For the majority of people in my family, there was no alternative to this. But then again, my family almost entirely was born and raised in dictatorship, which actually created these conveyor belt lifestyles. There was no choice. There was no way you would finish, for example, your studies, and based on the number of doctors available, they would place you into a hospital around the country where you were needed. You couldn't say no. If you said no, then you would lose your job, and then you just didn't have an option, right? So all of these pre-designed lifestyles is what my parents grew up with. So of course they could only give me that, right?
Yeah, that's true. And that's really interesting because I did not give my daughter that. I was a
Mm-hmm.
single parent at 19 years old. I was a business owner at 26 with an 8-year-old, like as a single parent, of an 8-year-old, I was
Oh gosh.
not your status quo. Like literally, so it's interesting that she still had that thought process, and that's probably come from school or from society and stuff,
Yeah,
because I definitely was not in that category. I definitely did things. I don't regret any of it, by the way, at all.
of course.
We've had this conversation, but yeah,
Yeah.
that is really interesting.
Mm.
But yeah, now I think entrepreneurship, like I think we're still teaching our children at school this societal, like what norm is. But actually, there's people complaining that we're not getting our children ready for the life because of AI, business and things. But actually, the teachers aren't equipped to know because they're not mind readers. Like, we don't
Hmm.
know what society is going to look like in 10 years' time. So actually
Yes.
blaming the teachers for teaching them a system that hasn't worked since the 1960s isn't actually their fault, because they
Yeah.
don't actually know what's coming. What do we teach? I mean, I do wish there was a bit more about business and finance in schools, but that's me personally because of what I teach. But yeah, I
No, I
think
completely agree with you. And I'm actually quite privileged because another part of my business is actually to go back into universities and teach. And this is something that I do in this semester. I go
yeah,
often back to universities and I teach and I work with students. And because I'm not academic staff, I think the information that I bring them lands a bit deeper. And I am a disruptor by nature. I'm a rebel and a disruptor. And I actually really, really speak about how important it is for them to have financial education and how important it is for them to change the world by how they spend their money. Because this is the information that they're not aware of. And this is something that I really like bringing to them, is to educate them that they have the power in their hands, in their pockets, on their plastic cards, because what you give your money to is what the world is going to have more of, right? So the moment I bring this to their awareness, they're absolutely fascinated. They're like, wow, I never thought of it that way. And I often give the example of the Marvel movies and the DC, right? And I make jokes about it. And I say, imagine that 40 years ago, there were a bunch of nerds in somebody's basement saying, one day we're going to make this a movie. And then they did. Look how much money they made, right? So you just have to figure out what it is that you really, really want and then put your money in that direction. And then at some point, the reward is going to come back from that lane. So I love doing that. And I agree with you. I think not having financial education is what literally handicaps us. This is also something I grew up with because I'm a woman. I was not encouraged to gain financial knowledge because oftentimes this was in my family said, you don't need to worry about money, just find a rich husband. I was like, excuse me? So yeah.
that's it's a Cinderella story, isn't it? It's like Disney taught us as women up until now. Don't get me wrong, they changed. We look at the Frozen and things. They have
Yeah.
actually realized now, but the older ones, they're all
Yes.
about princesses who find themselves a prince, and it's like,
Be a damsel in distress and somebody will
yes,
come to rescue you. They never educated us that we are the superheroes that are saving
yes.
ourselves and doing
100%. Like
life
we
different.
are our own superhero,
Yep.
definitely. And I think, yeah, the next year, like my grandkids' generation are definitely, I mean, don't get me wrong, my grandkids still love Disney. So, and they've watched Rapunzel is her favorite. Although saying that though, at the minute, my 5-year-old is obsessed with K-pop Demon Hunters. And
Yeah.
I've had to watch it over Easter about 30 times. So I'm now I
You're
know exactly.
professional.
I have the whole thing in my head. So that's, hopefully the next thing will come. But so yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to ask, like, before we finish, how do people find you? Like, where's the best place for them to contact you and stuff if they're interested in like getting to speak to you. And then I can put that into on the description as well.
Yep, anywhere on the internet, I'm everywhere. So there is my website, adinapetre.com. There is LinkedIn, Adina Petre, Instagram, Facebook. I even have a TikTok. I don't really post that much on there anymore, but for my younger audiences, which I really like engaging with, there is a TikTok available. So whatever channel they want to reach out to me on, I'm behind all of them, so they can directly reach out to me. If they want to send me an email, if they're really old school and they like writing letters, I welcome them. My email is very, very plain. It's mine, welcome@adinapetre.com. So I will send you all of these things. And I know I also owe you a picture for I will get them to you.
Thank you so much for speaking to me. It's been eye-opening, and I know it's going to benefit a lot more people as well as just me. So thank you again for joining me, and I will speak to you soon.
Thank you as well, Tracy. I really appreciate your work. I value it enormously, and I think we need more of that in the world. So thank you so much for doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching to the end. I really appreciate it, and it shows that you are serious about moving your business forward. I want to share something with you. When I was little, I watched my mum skip meals so my brother and I could eat because she didn't have enough money to feed us all. That pain changed everything. I promised myself I would never need to rely on anyone else financially. I worked relentlessly towards financial independence. Even as a young parent of 19, I still worked. And once I achieved financial independence, I became passionate that everyone deserves the same. But here's what I've discovered. Successful business owners can feel financially trapped just in a different way. And that's why I created the Money Metrics Academy to help you understand your essential business numbers in under an hour a week. No jargon, no overwhelm, just the clarity you need for true financial independence. Why not join the free entry-level membership and see how the community can help you? Let's get unstuck together.